The chandelier light at the Rosewood Manor felt like it was designed specifically to make wealthy people look even wealthier. Everything glittered, everything glittered, everything hummed with that particular frequency of old money, quiet, certain, and completely indifferent to anyone who hadn't been born into it. I stood in the bridal suite on the second floor, adjusting the last pin in my hair, and told myself that the flutter in my chest was just nerves. Normal nerves. Every bride feels this way. My name is Claire. I was 31 years old, a structural engineer who spent her days calculating load-bearing capacity and stress tolerance. I was good at reading structures, which ones would hold, which ones were already cracked beneath the surface. I was not, it turned out, nearly as good at reading people. My husband's name was Daniel Ashworth, fourth generation of a family that had made its fortune in commercial real estate, the kind of fortune that came with a last name people recognized, with a mother who kept a mental ledger of every social debt ever owed to her, and with a grandmother who had once described my parents, to my face, at a dinner I was not supposed to have overheard, as charming in a simple sort of way. I had filed that away. I had told myself it didn't matter. I was 31 years old and I should have known better. My parents had driven 4 hours from Clarksburg, West Virginia to be here. My mother had bought a new dress in a pale gold color that made her look luminous. My father had gotten his hair cut the day before, had polished his shoes twice, had practiced what he was going to say when he toasted us at the reception. He had told me the night before that he had been working on it for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. My father had spent 3 weeks writing a 2-minute speech because he wanted it to be perfect for me. I thought about that while I looked at myself in the mirror. The dress was ivory silk, simple lines, nothing that would embarrass the Ashworths. I had chosen it partly for that reason and hated myself a little for it now. My maid of honor, my best friend Rachel, appeared behind me in the mirror with a glass of water and an expression I recognized as her trying not to say something. "What?" I said. "Nothing," she said. "Rachel." She handed me the water. "Just drink this and remember that in 4 hours it'll all be over and you'll be on a plane to Portugal." "That's not nothing. That's something. What happened?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Your mom called me. I told her I'd come find you." I set the water down. "Where is she?" "In the garden. She's okay. Rachel paused. "Just go talk to her." I found my mother sitting on a stone bench near the rose hedges on the east side of the property, her hands folded in her lap, her new gold dress catching the afternoon light. She looked beautiful. She also looked like someone had said something to her. "Mom." I sat beside her and took her hands. "What happened?" She shook her head quickly in that way she had when she was trying to minimize something. "It's nothing, sweetheart. It's your day. Don't worry about me." "Mom." She looked at me. My mother has the kind of eyes that have never been able to hide anything from me. "Daniel's mother spoke to your father," she said carefully, "about the seating." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What about the seating?" She said there had been a change, that the head table arrangement had been, she paused, choosing the word, revised, that our seats had been moved. I had spent 4 months designing the seating arrangement for this reception. I had personally placed my parents at the head table, center left, next to Daniel and me. My future mother-in-law, Sandra Ashworth, had seen that seating chart 3 separate times and had said nothing. "Moved where?" I said. My mother looked down at her hands. "Table 11. Table 11 was near the back of the ballroom, close to the service corridor. I knew this because I had designed the floor plan myself. I stood up very slowly. "Stay here," I said. "Please, don't go inside yet. Give me 10 minutes. I found Sandra Ashworth in the main hallway near the reception entrance, standing with her sister and 2 women I recognized from the Ashworth holiday card, the kind of people who treated charity galas as competitive sport. Sandra was wearing a deep burgundy dress and a necklace that probably cost more than my parents' car. She was laughing at something when she saw me coming. Her expression shifted into what I'd come to think of as her management smile. Warm on the surface, calculating underneath. Claire, darling, you look absolutely— Where are my parents sitting? I said. A brief silence. The sister and the two women took a small collective step back, the social equivalent of clearing the stage. We needed to make some adjustments, Sandra said, her voice carrying that particular tone of patient explanation she reserved for contractors and catering staff. The head table was becoming quite crowded and I designed that seating chart. My parents were at the head table. Where are they sitting now? Table 11 is a perfectly lovely table. The floral arrangements there are actually quite— Table 11 is next to the kitchen. Claire. Her voice cooled by a single precise degree. This is a significant event for the Ashworth family. Our guests have certain expectations. I'm sure your parents will be perfectly comfortable. What does that mean? Our guests have certain expectations? She looked at me the way you look at someone who has said something mildly embarrassing in public. Patient. Almost pitying. Your parents are lovely people, she said. But this is a Rosewood reception. There are board members here. There are people from the foundation. It's simply a matter of— She paused. Fit. I stood there for a moment and I heard exactly what she was not saying. I had heard it before, in smaller doses, in the 2 years I had been with Daniel, in the way she described my hometown as quaint, in the way she had once asked me at a family dinner whether my parents had ever had the chance to travel, in the way she had introduced me to her friends. This is Claire, she's an engineer. Isn't that interesting? I had swallowed all of it. I had filed it away. I had told myself it was generational, cultural, that she would come around, that it didn't matter. My father had spent 3 weeks writing a 2-minute speech. Where is Daniel? I said. I found him in the groom's suite with his brother and his college roommate. He was having his tie adjusted and laughing at something when I opened the door. He turned and his face did that thing. It always did when he saw me. That immediate warmth, that opening, and for a moment I almost let it soften me. Hey, he said, Claire, you look incredible. Did you know about the seating change? I said. The room got quiet. His brother found something interesting to study on the wall. The college roommate stepped toward the window. Daniel's face did something complicated. Not surprise. That was the thing. There was no surprise on his face. My mother mentioned she was making some adjustments, he said. It's a big event and she moved my parents to table 11. Claire, did you know? He exhaled, slowly, the way he exhaled when he was about to explain something to me. She knows how to run these events. She's done this 100 times. Your parents will still have a great time. It's not what, Daniel? It's not important. It's just a seat? I didn't say that. She told my mother it was a matter of fit. Those were her words. Fit. He was quiet. Say something, I said. I think, he said carefully, that today is not the day to fight about this. I looked at my husband, who had told me 8 months ago when I had finally described the pattern I was seeing with his mother, that he understood, that he would talk to her, that things would be different. My husband, who had held my face in his hands and said, I will always put you first, Claire. Always. Okay, I said. Okay? He looked relieved. Yes. I picked up the hem of my dress. I'll handle it. I went back to my mother first. I told her to stay in the garden for 15 more minutes. I told her I loved her dress. I told her she looked luminous, which she did. Then I went to find the event coordinator, a kind-eyed woman named Paulette, who had her headset around her neck and a walkie-talkie in her hand. I need to see the current seating chart, I said. Paulette pulled it up on her tablet. I looked at it for a moment. Then I said, I need to make some changes. Of course, whatever table 1. The head table. I need you to swap the Ashworth extended family. I pointed to the 6 seats that had been added where my parents and my aunt and uncle had been, back to table 6 where they were originally assigned, and restore my parents, my aunt, and my uncle to their original seats at the head table. Paulette looked at the chart, then at me. Mrs. Ashworth. Sandra. She made these changes about an hour ago and said, "I'm the bride," I said. "This is my reception. My name is on the contract. Please make the changes." She made the changes. Then I asked her for one more thing. The ceremony itself was held in the garden under an arch of white peonies, which had been my only non-negotiable aesthetic request. It was beautiful. The late afternoon light came through the oak trees at exactly the angle that made everything look like a painting. My father walked me down the aisle with his hand over mine, and I could feel it trembling slightly, and that trembling undid me more than anything else that day because it was the most honest thing in the room. I said my vows. Daniel said his. He cried a little, which made several people in the audience cry, which would have moved me more if I hadn't spent the previous 40 minutes doing what I had done. The reception began at 7. Sandra Ashworth discovered the revised seating chart at approximately 7:14 when she led her group toward the head table and found it occupied by my parents, my aunt, my uncle, and two of my closest friends from college. She stood at the entrance to the ballroom for a long moment. I watched her from across the room. She found me near the bar at 7:19. "The seating has been changed back," she said. Her voice was very quiet. That particular quiet that meant she was more angry than she had words for at the moment. "Yes," I said. "I made those arrangements, and I changed them. My parents are at the head table. That's where they were always going to be." "Claire." She stepped closer. "I don't think you understand what you're doing. There are people here tonight who think my parents don't fit," I said. I understood exactly. That's why I changed it back. Something moved behind her eyes. "Calculation, mostly. A reassessment. We will discuss this later," she said. "Yes," I said, "we will." Dinner was served. The room settled into the particular warmth of a well-run reception. The low light, the good food, the accumulated goodwill of people who had dressed up and wanted to have a nice time. My father's hand had stopped trembling. My mother was laughing at something my college friend Maya had said. They looked comfortable. They looked like they belonged there. Because they did. At 8:45, Paulette appeared at my elbow and said, quietly, "Whenever you're ready." I had been waiting for Daniel to come back to the table. He had been circulating the way he always did at his family's events, easy, practiced, moving through the room like someone who had been trained for exactly this. He returned to his seat at 8:50 and put his hand over mine and said, "You look happy." "I am," I said. And in that moment, with my mother laughing 2 seats down and my father's speech notes visible in his jacket pocket, I meant it. At 9 o'clock, Paulette handed the microphone to my father. He stood up. He was a large man. My father, broad-shouldered, a little soft around the middle now, with hands that were calloused from 28 years of work in construction and a voice that had always made me feel safe. He looked out at the room and for a moment he just stood there, and I could see him taking it in. The chandelier light, the flowers, the full ballroom, his daughter in an ivory dress, and his eyes were very bright. He cleared his throat. "I've been working on this for a few weeks," he said. A little laughter from the tables near us. My wife told me I was overthinking it. She was right. She usually is. More laughter. My mother covered her eyes with one hand. "So I'm going to keep it short." He looked at me. "Claire," he said, "you have been the best thing that has ever happened to your mother and me. Not because of anything you've achieved, and you've achieved a lot, but because of who you are. Because you are kind in a world that makes it easy not to be. Because you are brave in ways most people never have to be. Because when someone you love is being treated as less than they are." He paused, and I saw his jaw tighten slightly, and I understood that he had not missed anything that had happened today, not a single thing. "You don't look away." He raised his glass. "To my daughter," he said, "and to the hope that the people in her life will always know what they have." The room applauded. Daniel applauded beside me. I watched Sandra Ashworth, 3 tables away, bring her hands together in the minimum motion that could be classified as clapping. I stood up. Paulette was ready. She handed me the second microphone, the one I had asked her to have available, and the room settled into expectant quiet, with the easy assumption that I was about to give a standard bride's thank you. I looked at Daniel first. He was smiling at me with that open warmth, that love that I knew was real, that love that had somehow not been enough to make him say, this morning, that his mother was wrong. Then I looked out at the room. Thank you all for being here tonight, I said. It means more than I can say to have the people I love in the same room. I paused. I want to say something about this table. A small shift in the room's attention. The particular alertness of people who sense that something unscripted is happening. My parents were not originally seated here, I said. They were moved, this afternoon, to a table near the back of the room. When my mother asked why, she was told it was a matter of fit. I let that word sit in the air for a moment. My father has worked with his hands for 28 years to give me every opportunity I have ever had. My mother drove me to every swim practice, every academic competition, every college visit, and never once made me feel like anything was out of reach for me. They are the reason I am standing here in this dress in this room. The room was very quiet. I want to be clear about something, I said. This marriage, if it's going to work, is going to be one where the people I love are treated with the same respect as anyone else in the room, not because of their last name, not because of their address, because they are good people who deserve to be in the front of any room I am ever in. I looked at Sandra. She was looking back at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something stripped of its usual management, something that looked for just a moment unguarded. I love your son, I said, and I meant it, and the room could hear that I meant it. I want this family to work. But I need everyone in this room to understand that my family— I gestured to my parents, my aunt, my uncle, the people who had driven 4 hours in a used Camry with dress shoes in a bag— is not a footnote. They are the headline. I set the microphone down. The room was still for one breath, two. Then my college friend Maya started clapping, and then the tables around her, and then the sound moved through the room in a wave that I didn't watch, because I was looking at my father, who had put his hand over his mouth, and my mother, who was crying quietly into a cocktail napkin with no effort to hide it. Daniel's hand found mine under the table. He held it very tightly. I should have changed it back myself, he said quietly. When she told me, I should have said no. Yes, I said. You should have. I'm sorry. I looked at him. I know. It was not the end of anything that night. Sandra Ashworth did not transform into a different person over the dessert course. There would be conversations ahead, difficult ones, the kind that don't resolve in a single evening. Daniel and I would spend the first weeks of our marriage working through what it meant that he had known and said nothing, what it meant that I had handled it alone, what it meant to build a life together when the foundations had shown their first crack before the reception was even over. But my father danced with my mother to a song he had requested specifically because she had loved it when they were young, and he was not graceful about it. And she was laughing, and they were at the front of the room, under the chandelier light, visible and present and exactly where they were supposed to be. And at the end of the night, when most of the guests had gone and the catering staff was clearing the last tables, my father found me near the coat check and hugged me the way he used to when I was small. Completely, without reservation, his big calloused hand on the back of my head. That was brave, he said into my hair. I learned it from you, I said. He pulled back and looked at me. His eyes were still bright. No, he said gently. You learned that all on your own. I thought about all the times I had swallowed something that should have been said, all the dinners where I had smiled at a comment that didn't deserve a smile, all the moments I had calculated the social cost of speaking and decided the cost was too high. The structure had always been cracked. I had just been too close to it to read it clearly. But I was an engineer. I knew what to do with a cracked foundation. You don't ignore it. You don't smile at it and file it away. You find the fracture and you decide, carefully, deliberately, with full knowledge of what the work will cost, whether you are going to repair it or walk away from the building. I had chosen to repair it. For now, with my eyes open. In the car on the way to the airport, Daniel held my hand and said, "I'm going to be better." "I know you're going to try," I said. "That's different from being better. I need you to know the difference." He was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. "You're right," he said. "You're right." Outside the window, the city moved past us, lit up and indifferent, full of other people navigating their own cracked structures, their own calculations of what was worth saving and what wasn't. I leaned my head against the glass and thought about my mother in her gold dress, laughing under the chandelier. I thought about the way my father's hands had stopped trembling. Some things, I thought, are worth every difficult conversation ahead. Some things you repair because the structure, underneath the damage, is still worth believing in. I closed my eyes. The city fell away behind us. We were going to Portugal.